Hello there. It's been a while since I've made a video, but recent news has, I guess, pulled me out of obscurity a little bit. Lots going on in the world, that's for sure. In case you don't know me, my name is Elaine. I am a psychic, and there's a lot of abilities that I have, but I'm not going to go into those now because I'm actually here to talk about not psychic stuff. Well, not exactly. I need to talk about what's really going on behind the scenes in our world right now. I think in terms of what's going on with the news, particularly around the Epstein files. And maybe you already know this about me if you know me as a person, but I don't really talk about this very much because I don't allow what happened to me in my past to run my present. Not anymore. Not really. I'll talk about that if I can. But what I really want to talk about is the fact that I am a survivor of the very kinds of abuse that are currently being revealed through the Epstein files release and the discussions that are going on around it. It's so much more than what's being discussed right now. There is a lot to unpack, but I feel like it's an important topic to get into, and I feel like it's important to make sure people understand that it's way more than it seems like it is. And we are only seeing the very teeny tiniest tip of the iceberg. And I have a feeling that probably lots of other people out there who've been affected by this kind of abuse are probably in agreement with me that this is just the very tip of the truth. And we don't even know half of it. Not right now. And, again, I'm not going to share resources. I'm not going to share names of people. I'm not going to talk about a whole bunch of things with my own family. I would rather talk about this network at large because I feel like that's what's more important right now is to focus on the network of cyclical abuse that is happening right now in our world and that has been happening for a very long time. Eons. This isn't new. This isn't just because of Hollywood or because we have celebrities. It's not just because we have powerful people with a lot of money. It's not that. That's tied to it and it's part of it, but it isn't new. And it isn't just because those people were getting a leg up. That's the worst possible term to use, but I guess if the shoe fits. More puns, sorry. I almost can't help myself. In some ways, we kind of almost have to find a way to make light, too, in these dark times, because, to be honest, I think we are actually on the edge of letting in the light. And we have been living in dark times for so long, we don't even know what it looks like to experience something else. I think that it's interesting that we are, I think, collectively going through a bit of an experience that's causing a lot of people to reel in their shock of what's being discovered about people that I think a lot of people have admired, looked up to, maybe even wanted to be like. I mean, when you have people like Deepak Chopra being mentioned, yeah. And so many more. There are a lot of people who have been affected by this. And I think it's important to first say that although I'm a survivor of abuse that was very similar to what happened on Epstein Island and other places, I am not just a victim or a survivor. I think it's important to recognize that when you are part of a system like this that is so prevalent in society and it is so widely a part of everything, I don't think we recognize that yet, but we're going to talk about that. I'm going to share what I know. But we aren't just victims of what's being done to us. Unfortunately, we are also unwitting perpetrators of more abuse because we don't realize our part in this gigantic tapestry that's being created using our unwitting help to create it. And that's part and parcel of how abuse works. It's a part of the cycle where you victimize someone and then you hold it over their head and make them feel ashamed and humiliated about their participation in such an act. Because as a victim, you feel embarrassed and humiliated, and you feel small and powerless. And then you feel like you're the one to blame. I must have been wearing the wrong clothes. I must have done the wrong thing. I didn't say loud enough that I didn't want that to happen. All these things that you put on yourself, that's very purposefully constructed in our society, that we feel that way when abuse is perpetrated upon us. And then, unfortunately, they utilize that against you to keep you silent, to encourage your secrecy around what happened, and then use you against not only yourself, but against other people as well, to participate in further criminal and abusive acts. And when you yourself have been hurt in such a devastating way, you also then abuse other people, because that behavior of a hurt person inherently becomes unhealthy. This is what happens, and we are all part of that unfortunate cycle of continued abuse, because it's absolutely evident to me from looking at the way society functions that it isn't functioning. This is not a healthy society at all. And I think that everywhere on the globe, this is true. There's imbalance in every part of the world, in every country. There are powerful people who take advantage of those they see as weaker. They create a scarcity type of situation where it seems like there isn't enough food, there isn't enough shelter, there isn't enough whatever for everyone, which is absolutely not true. Plenty of resources for all of us. We make it seem there's this feeling of having to scramble to keep things going, to keep yourself alive, to keep yourself together, and you have to hide the fact that you're weak, or that you're vulnerable, or that you don't have enough, or that things aren't going well for you. You have to hide that. And that's not normal. That's very unhealthy behavior. Being vulnerable is actually powerful. Being willing to share your darkest, deepest part of yourself with someone is very vulnerable. And it's very powerful to do such a thing. It takes a lot of courage to do that. it's important to understand that when a person is being victimized in this way, it creates a power structure, a hierarchy, in which the abuser is the one in charge. And the person who has been abused now has to play this game of how do I keep myself safe? And it's usually to just play along until you can figure out a different route to take to escape and do an exit from that world, which for some people is impossible because their abusers were too smart and kept them captive, and that was it. There was no getting away. What I think is going to shock everybody, though, about this situation and the current truth of the way that it is that this unfortunate aspect of society is not limited to just the rich and famous. It's not limited to some powerful single person who lives on an island someplace and happens to have holdings in lots of different places around the globe. It's not limited to that. It's not limited to that. It's everywhere. It's important to understand that this has been widely disseminated to every part of the globe. It's everywhere. It is in your town. It is in my town. It is in every town all over the world. I would be shocked if there is any place that hasn't been touched by this unfortunate and very depraved predation upon the weak and the unfortunate. Because it isn't just children and it isn't just women. It's men too, and boys. Everybody's involved. We are all victims. We have all been traumatized. Our entire world has been affected by this. And it's not limited to just a few individuals. It is everybody. Now, you may not have been abused yourself, but I guarantee you know somebody who has. And they may never have talked about it because it's not a thing we encourage in society. We don't encourage people to talk about this because we don't believe people when they share what really happened to them. And I don't expect anybody to believe me right now either. Like, you don't have to believe me. I don't care. At this point in my life, I don't expect anyone to believe me. I really don't. Because for so long I've lived with this. And I have seen that if I share even a little bit of it, even a tiny bit of what actually happened to me, the look on people's faces says it all. They don't want to hear about this. They don't want to know this is really happening in the world. They don't want to know what happens to children from the time they're born sometimes, which is absolutely what happened to me. And it isn't just limited to this one kind of abuse, where we take advantage of a child in an intimate, physical way. It isn't just that. It is emotional. It is intentional. And it's also spiritual. It affects every layer of our consciousness. And it is very cleverly designed to be hidden in plain sight. You aren't meant to acknowledge it, but it's always there. We're encouraged to keep it a secret, but everybody already knows, even if we don't want to talk about it. You probably have witnessed the side effects of it in plenty of people, and you just didn't know that's what you were seeing. Again, it's hiding in plain sight. This is the reality we live in right now. Unfortunately, we live in an illusion. We are taught that you go to work, you make money, After you get home, you play with your kids, you make some dinner, you do your chores, you have some fun, and then you go back, you go to bed, and you do it all over again, right? This is what we are taught is the cycle of life, and it's absolutely, it's absolutely not. It's not what we are meant to do. We're capable of a lot more than we're doing, and it's unfortunate that we aren't seeing the importance of breaking free of this illusion. But I think maybe now we're starting to figure it out, that maybe we don't know this world like we thought we did. And everybody is going to be shocked when they find out how many people have been involved in what happened on that island. But also, I think people will be even more shocked when they understand that our entire bureaucratic hierarchy is created out of this depraved system of oppression. Every kind of government, every kind of corporation, every kind of school system that's sanctioned by the government, every kind of religious institution that's a major world institution, I guarantee it's been infiltrated. I guarantee it. And again, you don't have to believe me. Just wait. Wait for the truth to unfold, or go do some research and find it for yourself, because that's what I did. I'm not sharing resources because I don't feel like that's my job. I feel like if you really want to know these things, go find out. The internet's there for you too. Everybody can go look. Just have to start looking, and it's there. All in plain sight. It's there. The truth is that all of these institutions have embedded within them layers and layers and layers of abusive, toxic behavior that are meant to keep us indoctrinated and enslaved. It begins in America, the United States, when you go to school. It actually starts long before that, because if you watch television, if you listen to music, if you eat food from the grocery store, if you go to movies, if you partake in, virtually everything, advertising, it's everywhere. And then in the unwritten rules of society also, the secret keeping, the not talking about what's going on behind the scenes, and victim blaming, like, oh, if somebody is an alcoholic, they're such a terrible person. But we're never talking about, well, why is that person an alcoholic? Why would they actually do that to themselves? Because when you're poisoning your own body, that's not self-preservation. You're doing something to harm yourself, and you don't do that out of nowhere. That occurs because you have been injured in some way. And now you're trying to figure out how to medicate yourself, to figure out what to do to feel better. And if you aren't given the resources to actually get yourself better, you do whatever you can to figure out how to get better on some level that makes sense to you and what's available. Alcohol is readily available. Drugs are readily available. So these things are, again, part and parcel of the system. It is part of the problem, and it is absolutely designed on every level of what we're doing in our world to easily draw you back into the network of indoctrination. Everything that you learn in school, it's indoctrination. And I think before anybody freaks out, let me just say, most of us are doing this innocently and without any idea that we're participating in this system, because we don't have a clue that it's even what's being done to us. I think almost everybody who's participating in it has no clue. Teachers don't get a job teaching because they think they're going to indoctrinate children. Of course not. Good people wouldn't do that. kind people who actually want to teach children, generally speaking, are probably the kind of person who wants to provide service to others and do good things for them. It's a noble and worthy cause. And yet, we don't really understand. School systems in the United States were never built to actually educate everybody. If you look at the history of why the school system was created, it was originally created to teach the children of immigrants who didn't speak English to be able to function in society so that they could better teach them how to be docile, not ask too many questions, and work hard all day so that they would then be part of the manufacturing business and basically be enslaved to that business. And there's a very dark and disturbing history the school system has, and it's continued to be that, unfortunately, over the years. And again, no one has to believe me. You don't have to believe me. But it's absolutely true. Go do your research and find out. But the system is built upon an intention to keep telling people a story that isn't true so that we'll keep participating, because if we keep believing the story, even if it doesn't feel good to us, we see everybody else around us doing it, so we do it too. We follow along because we don't know any better. We don't realize that there's a different way to do things. And then some people do something different, and that's amazing. And then better things come along, and yes, we can have better things, and it can be a freer system, and we can fix it. But right now, the reality is, it's an illusion. It's an illusion that we have all been tricked into. We have been tricked into believing that this house of cards that runs the world, that this is all there is, and that we have no power to do anything. But that just isn't true. The truth is, once you understand what these systems actually are, you're free of them. Because once you break the illusion, they can't keep doing it to you. Once you wake up and recognize that everywhere you go, you're being taught these crazy ideas in order to keep you running on the rat wheel so that you'll stay too busy to investigate too much and to maybe learn something about what's actually going on. And there are people who know exactly what's going on, but because our culture discourages us from talking about it, we don't want to tell you what's really going on, because we're getting more victimized when we try to talk about this. And this is part of the system that, again, it's created that way on purpose because it serves the oppressors. And they're everywhere. The network infiltrates every single part of this world. Unless you live in a very remote area, protected from technology and having some kind of very different way of life that is apart from everything else, unfortunately, unless you're like that, you've been part of the system. You've been victimized by it. And you've been participating in it against your knowledge, most likely. And then when people do try to talk about what's really going on, again, they're victimized. They're told they're crazy. We're conspiracy theorists. But look at how the Catholic Church has been abusing children for countless millennia, I'm sure. And yet, somehow they survived that and everybody's okay with it. I'm sure that there were people who left the church because of that and said, heck with this. But lots of people stayed, despite knowing children are being abused by priests. And somehow in their minds they make it okay. Because again, the system encourages us to say, oh, well, that must have just been some people. It's not everyone. But that institution is responsible for those people, And that institution did not do its job to protect children. Not really. And are schools protecting children? At least in the United States, I don't think they are. Because look at how many school shootings are happening. Look at how many children are bullied. Look at how many perpetrators of abuse live inside of that system and work inside of that system. It's not there for kids to be protected and to learn. It isn't. It is to encourage indoctrination of a certain way of thinking, a certain way of responding, a certain way of being, so that you are more likely to participate in the continued oppression of everyone and yourself. So you don't ask too many questions. So you don't push the envelope too far. They want that. And that's the purpose of it. It really isn't about educating anybody. It's about keeping you stuck in a system for so many years in your youth that you don't know how to think differently unless you were lucky enough to have parents who encouraged you to think in a different way and ask a lot of questions anyway, even though it would get you in trouble at school. It's a really difficult thing to face, that our government, that our school system, that our financial system, that the corporations, so many corporations, that the medical system, every kind of bureaucracy that is a hierarchy is in some way, shape, or form linked to this oppression. And it is all perpetuated on abuse. Serious abuse. Severe abuse. The kind of abuse nobody wants to think about. That they don't even make movies about this kind of abuse because it's so depraved and horrible. They couldn't make a movie about that. No one would want to see it because it is too horrifying. It is, again, going to shock people, I'm sure. And again, I don't expect anyone to believe me. You don't have to. But when you understand that all of these industries depend on orchestrated systems that have been put into place to keep people docile, pacified, just enough that they will keep participating. You've been given just enough television to keep you docile. You've been given just enough work to keep you too tired to be in rebellion or to do too much in the way of looking things up and researching stuff. I think it's important to understand that there are very clear reasons why things don't change, even though people see a need for it. And if you think about how many people disappear early in their careers or at a certain point in their career when they come across certain information and they're just gone. Oh, they were assassinated. Oh, this person was, they overdosed. Oh, they committed suicide. They get rid of a lot of famous people that way who decide they don't want to go along with the program anymore, and they see that this is the point where they can no longer continue to go along with this. Those people disappear because they have powerful friends. They have a black ops group on their side they will do anything, and they have no boundaries. Zero. They have shushed up a lot of things. Not just the abuse that's been perpetrated, but even things like technologies that could have been released to humanity that have been covered up because there's so many people who have created technologies that could improve us, that could improve our lives and set us free in a lot of ways from all of the debt and all of the having to pay for so much of the resources that we need. And those people's patents disappear, and they get purchased by some company, and that person is gone, and you never hear from them again. Again, that's very purposeful, and it's intentional to keep people in the dark about what's available to them. They just go around putting out all the fires people start when it comes to figuring out things that is meant to come out, or that they intend to start talking to people about, and they shut it down. It's a really serious situation that we've been in for a long time, but I think we are at the tip of freeing ourselves. I see that. As a psychic, I see that. I see that we're at the edge of a new beginning. We're at the edge of things changing. But first, we're going to have to experience the grief and the horror of knowing what we have survived, what we have been exposed to, the things that have been done to us. I think people are going to be horrified and shocked. I don't think it's going to be easy for anybody to learn the things that I already know exist in the world, because I survived so much myself and then had to find reasoning, had to understand it. And in order to be a normal human being, I had to do so much work on myself. I have been on a growth journey since I was a young woman. And I'm very lucky to have found the right people along the way to help me and help me figure out what to do and how to get better. And how to live with what I know and what I've survived. And even with my therapists, they didn't know the full extent of what was done to me. I didn't even know at the time, and it took me a long time to figure it out for myself. And that's unfortunately what all victims of such severe abuse are doing. We're having to figure out how to deal with this on our own, because nobody can handle the levels of suffering we have managed to survive. I really hope that starts to change, because it sure would benefit society to know these are the things done to keep us imprisoned in a very dark landscape of suffering. And it's not necessary, and we don't have to keep living like this. We can be better, and we can do better, and we can have better. But the first step is acknowledging that this is actually real, and that it's actually happening, and that we are part of this cycle. And we have to begin with forgiving ourselves for participating in it, and being compassionate with ourselves for having been victimized by it. And from there, we have to be able to forgive the other participants and to have compassion for them too, because everybody is part of it. Nobody gets off scot-free, not even those of us who have survived the worst. Because like I said, if you're a victim, you're also a perpetrator. You can't be any other way. Abuse creates in you an unfortunate set of behaviors where when you are wounded, you wound others. Not because you want to, because you don't know any better. Because when your brain gets tripped in this landscape of misery and people are hurting you, you lash out. Inevitably, you hurt back when they hurt you. It's a normal response of self-defense, of self-preservation. So we can't blame ourselves for having lashed out at those who have hurt us. But when you become aware of this, I think it's very important to recognize that while you may have been victimized and continued perpetrating more hurt, this is the time where you have an opportunity to start fixing that and start taking responsibility for your own self, for your own well-being, for your own consciousness and awareness and what you're going to do with it. I've had to do that hard work over 5 decades. I think it's everybody's job to take care of their own business and make sure that your energy is under control of your own consciousness and not anyone else's. We are sovereign beings, and that power keeps us safe. I'm not worried about what anybody's going to do to me. They've already done the worst. What else are they going to do? Oh no, maybe I'll disappear next? I doubt it. They're not going to get rid of me. I have nothing for them to care about. But I can say it's very important that we all recognize that our energy belongs to us. And we have the power to own and be responsible for who we are and what we do, for how we feel and what we think, for what we say and how we act. We have those choices, and that is all that we control. We can't control whether or not that continues out there. I have no power over whether or not people continue perpetrating more violence, more abuse, more trauma. I can't control that. All I can do is procure peace for myself and trust that in my own space, I can control who I am and what I'm doing in my own environment. And when I control my own peace, nobody can destroy that no matter what they do. Nobody can stop me from feeling peace if I choose that for myself. And that's true for everybody. And that's powerful. And I think that's the most powerful thing in the entire world, is to know that no matter what has been done to you, you can find peace. You can find strength within yourself, especially if you've survived the trauma of this world. You're strong already. And you're already worthy of all the good things that should be coming to you, if they aren't already. Because just by your very nature of being here, if you're alive, you're contributing to the world. And that's all you need to be, is alive. Are you breathing? You're contributing. Because you're taking breath in and you're sending breath back out. And that's a contribution. Just you exchanging air, that's a contribution. The plants need your carbon dioxide. So you taking the oxygen that they've put out and you sending back out your carbon dioxide means that you're contributing. That alone is a contribution, and you don't have to be doing anything else to be worthy to be here. So I hope that right now, that knowledge will light you up inside a little bit and help you recognize that you don't need to be doing anything special. You don't need to be going out riding on your white horse and saving the world. Nobody needs to do that. You don't need to get in front of a video camera and tell your story if you've been a victim. You don't have to do that. You don't have to tell everybody what happened to you. You don't have to even share it. Nobody needs to know if you've survived something like that. You can keep it to yourself if that's the best way for you to move forward. Or if you feel like you want to share it, then do. But you don't have to. You don't have to do anything fabulous. You don't have to go out and start volunteering at an organization that you think is doing good in the world. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be part of anything. You don't have to be in a movement. You don't have to be demonstrating, but you could. It's really up to you what feels right. And when you dig down inside of who you really are, you can begin to be motivated by your own intuition and your own emotional guidance system. That's like a compass inside of you that can show you the way toward what feels good to you. and let that be the guide instead of looking outside of yourself and expecting somebody to know what you should be doing. That's what we've been taught, that we should ignore our emotions because they are tricky. And we've been taught that we should ignore when we're exhausted and keep going anyways because that's noble. That we should ignore when we don't make enough money and we take on more debt in order to figure out how to live, even though it feels wrong to keep putting yourself in debt. No, there's no other way to do it. That's what we're taught. But that's not true. You have to follow what feels right to you. Does it feel right to put yourself in more debt? If it doesn't, don't do it. A different way will come to you. You can do some research and find something else. There are other ways to live. There are other ways to be. And you don't have to believe me either. Believe yourself. Believe how you feel. The thoughts are the thing that are tricky, in my opinion. Because thoughts, those are programmed by your environment around you sometimes. Sometimes they arise out of intuition, and sometimes they arise from ego, which has been trained by the outer world and what's been going on in your life and what you've learned through school, through the textbooks that are made by the same 3 or 4 companies that put out the same vanilla tapioca lies. If you've read Fahrenheit 451, maybe you'll recognize that vanilla tapioca line, but it's important to understand that it isn't your emotions that are lying to you. It's more likely your thoughts from your ego, and it's more likely the indoctrination you've received over the many years you've been alive and the lies that you have been told about how you're supposed to behave and how you're supposed to act and what you're supposed to say. Nobody can tell you what that is except for you. So if somebody else is trying to tell you how to be, I would suggest you ignore that and drop down into who you are and how you feel about what they're saying to you. And if it feels true, then do it. But if it doesn't feel true, then don't. Choose something else. Do a little reflection. But know that you're the only one who controls you. Even if someone holds a gun to your head, they don't control your choices. You always have choices. Even if they are bad choices, you still have them. And that's what really is the truth, is that we always have choices and we always have power over ourselves. So we should not allow ourselves to feel like we have to do anything. The best thing sometimes is to be. And sometimes that means being sad, being distressed, being grief-stricken by what's been done to you or what you've seen and witnessed or what you've learned. It's not easy to learn about these terrible things that have been done to so many innocent people in this world. So many innocent people have suffered, and they continue to suffer. People disappear all the time. There are people enslaved around this world everywhere, and they are in your town. They are under your nose. I guarantee there are slaves right where you live. People who are being kept prisoner right in front of you. Sometimes sold by their own parents into slavery. And their parents know exactly what's happening to them. I guarantee that there are people like that right where you live. You don't have to believe me, but I know it's true. It makes me sad that it's true, and I hate that it's true, and I wish that it wasn't, and I hope to see the day that we crack this open and stop it finally, once and for all. I really hope for that. I've hoped for it my entire life. And I finally have hope now more than ever that maybe we have a chance of finally seeing this cracked open and revealed for its ugly, depraved, sick, twisted, horrible enslavement that it is. I really hope that we get this fully and completely out in the open, finally, because we deserve the truth. We deserve to know that what we have bought into without even recognizing it, that we've been manipulated into believing things that aren't true because they've been presented to us in such a way that we don't even know that we have a choice. I often give this example of how when we give permission to an app, when we download it, that we rarely ever look at the legalese of all the permissions that it's asking access to on your device. Most people don't bother to read it. They just accept it and move on, having no idea that they've just allowed an app, say for a flashlight, to have access to their contacts and their phone, like their phone calls or their pictures or something like that. Like, why does it need access to that? It doesn't need my address book. Why is it in there? But you didn't look and you didn't know that it was accessing that, but it is. And it seems like a totally innocent thing, and yet, is it? Oh, they just made a flashlight app. What are they doing with all that information? They're mining it, and they're using it to build a profile on you. We thought Cambridge Analytica was the, exposure of that, but that's just part of this whole network. It's the tech giants. It's everything. It's the way that we have to pay for our power. It's everything. It's our whole world. It's all built. If it's a hierarchy, it's part of the system. The hierarchy is the problem, folks. The hierarchy is the problem. The hierarchy is the unnatural order of power structures that were created by humans who want to keep some people under their thumb so they can have more than they deserve or that's fair because they are taking it without permission and without really being honest about it. And they're presenting it as, oh, well, if you're willing to enslave yourself, I'll be happy to take care of you. So we do it. Sure, I'll enslave myself to your job. You don't think of it that way, but that's exactly what you're doing. Well, I need money, and I hate this job, but I have to pay my bills. It's a whole thing. Like, the entire hierarchy is intended to keep us too busy, too tired, too sick to actually do things that would be able to free us. It is all on purpose. That is the point. To keep us too tired. Even if we figure out what's going on, we're too tired or we're too disempowered to feel or believe that we could do anything about it. But really all that has to happen is that you recognize, hey, now that I'm aware of this, I have power now. The power of my knowing means that I'm in control of my own consciousness. And when I look at those ads that people put on the billboards, I know what those are. Those are trying to indoctrinate me to believe something. And I don't have to. And when I go to school, even though I'm a kid and I know I have to be there, I know that they're trying to indoctrinate me and that what they're teaching me isn't actually always the truth. So I can choose to go find out for myself what's real. I can choose to do my own research instead of just believing what I've been taught at school. And I know that the way that they treat me at school is kind of silly because they punish children instead of positively reinforcing them, which is actually psychology and proven research, and that's what really works. But we don't do that. Schools don't really use research. They really don't. If you're a teacher, you probably know that. They don't use research. Government doesn't use research either. They do what they want, and they pretend they're using research, but they don't. What they're using is their own ideology of keeping people imprisoned and oppressed. That is the whole point of the hierarchy, to make the system seem like it's so big and powerful that you can't defeat it. But all you have to do is recognize what it is, and now you are empowered. As long as you know that it's a structure that's meant to keep you small, meant to keep you stuck, now you are no longer stuck. Now you know what it is and you're empowered. They don't have power over you anymore once you are aware. You can take a charge of your consciousness and you can find your serenity. And that's the goal. Control yourself and they can't do anything to you. Control how you feel and they can do nothing. They cannot control you, even if they imprison you. They can't control you, even if they torture you. Even if they put you somewhere in the middle of the desert and leave you. They don't control you. You are now empowered. No matter what they do to you, you are empowered when you know, when you're aware. And a lot of people might think that's scary to think. Oh no, what if I watch this video and they start watching me and ooh. If that's how you feel, then don't watch the video. It's okay. And again, you don't have to believe me. But I've done my own research and I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes in my life and I've learned a lot of things. And I can tell you that it's all connected. Even the cover-up of aliens. It's all connected, my friends. The lack of knowledge about what's going on in the ocean, all connected. The reasons why we haven't gone back to the moon, all connected. It's all connected. It's all part of the same keeping us in the dark stuff. And when you recognize that, even scientific institutions and all of that, it's all involved. It's all part of the whole system. And we can break it with consciousness, with awareness. It's the empowerment. So, I feel like that's enough to be said on this subject for now. Maybe I'll make another video at some point when it comes to this stuff. I don't know. I generally don't like to talk about this very much just because, again, I feel like people don't want to hear it. And I also think that people don't want to believe that they're being this controlled, even though we are. I don't think people want to know that. I think a lot of people would rather stay in the dark and just sip their wine and watch their movie and pretend that everything's fine, you know? And I get it. I can appreciate that it's easier to stuff your head in the sand because it is scary to imagine that the world is governed by a bunch of depraved lunatics. But unfortunately, those power structures are the people who are in charge right now. But we don't have to let it be that way. We have the power to change that. And I think it's starting to unfold in a way that maybe when people start to figure out what's really going on, it will start to change things. I sure hope so, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, you at least, if you heard me, you know that once you learn and once you see what the reality really is, you are empowered. You are in control. Okay? Believe it. You are in control of you. That's all you've ever been in control of. Nothing else. Nothing else. And I think when we also recognize that we chose to come here before we were born. We picked the life that we now live. And maybe we don't remember it, but we did that. And maybe that can be a source of empowerment for you too, to recognize that, hey, you actually chose this because you knew what you were going to go through and you knew you were strong enough to handle it. Maybe that awareness can also give you a sense of stability, knowing what things are like right now. So maybe that'll help. But remember, you're not a victim. You're not a victim once you become aware, once you own who you are. And you know your part to play. So I hope that helps you. And I hope that this hasn't disturbed you too much, but I want it to disturb you enough that you'll go look into some sources of what I talked about maybe and find out for yourself what really is going on. Because I do believe that knowledge is power too. And if you feel like maybe some of this is really true for you, then maybe go look up some of this stuff and find out. Go into those rabbit holes and discover who's really running the show. It's all linked. All these little disparate elements. It's going to shock, I think, everybody when they find out how deeply this goes and how very orchestrated it all is. It's all linked. So we'll see as time goes on how this unfolds, but in the meantime, take good care of yourself and procure that peace within you, because that is the one thing they can't touch. No matter where you are, no matter what your life looks like, procure that peace within you, and nothing can stop you from being your best self. That's what I believe. But until next time, I hope this finds you well, and may you be blessed with wonderful, good things coming your way.